It's time for a wellness revolution. Brought to you by Hotze Health and Wellness Center. Honest discussion on maintaining health and wellness naturally to enjoy a better quality of life.
He's the doctor fighting to let you keep your doctorate.
Now, Dr. Stephen Hotze.
Welcome to Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution. I'm Stacey Banfield here with Dr. Stephen Hotze, founder of the Hotze Health and Wellness Center. And as always, remember, everybody needs a health coach. You can go to HotzeHWC.com. That's Hotze, Hotze, HWC.com. And you can download our podcasts, always very informative. And speaking of informative, we have another great guest on tap for you today, a longtime guest, Pamela Hutchins. Fascinating lady. Can't wait to share her story with you. Right, Dr. Hotze?
That's exactly right. Thank you, Stacey, and thank each one of you for joining us. Let me just amplify on what Stacey was saying. I believe that you need a doctor and a staff of professionals who can coach you on a path of health and wellness naturally. So as you mature, you're not having to be taking all these prescribed pharmaceutical drugs that make you sicker quicker, but you can feel full of energy, vibrant, full of life, vim and vigor, enthusiastic, naturally. What a novel idea. Anyway, it's not much appreciated by the pharmaceutical companies and conventional doctors when I take this position, but you know what? I really don't care. I care about you, and I believe that's what you need. I care about the truth. And, you know, the truth is radical and revolutionary when a society accepts deceit. You know,
that's right.
You know, so when we talk about the truth, that you can be healthy and well naturally, that's the truth. That's very revolutionary in a society that wants to believe that you can poison yourself to good health using pharmaceutical drugs, which are toxins, which will poison you. Yes, they will. And I'm reminded what my daddy told me the night I graduated from med school, son, don't poison your patients like all the other doctors do. So that's why we have the Hotze Health and Wellness Center. My dad planted a seed in my mind, and that's what we're doing. We're not poisoning. We're helping them get better. And we have a guest with us today, Pamela Hutchins. Pamela came in to our Health and Wellness Center 10 years ago. Can you believe that?
Went by fast.
Literally. I mean, it's within a month of 10 years ago. I mean, she came in on April 24th, 2008. And that's before the big crash. Everybody was living high then, remember? Crash didn't come to the fall. Anyway, Pamela, we are grateful to have you on the program. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Let me let our listening audience know that Pamela Hutchins is a very accomplished author, and she's written over 16 books.
It's incredible.
And these are they mostly fiction?
They are. They're mostly mysteries.
And what is it of these books? When did you start writing?
I started closet writing before I came to see you guys in 2008, but I wasn't really getting anywhere. I didn't believe in myself, and I didn't have a lot of energy. And my first book took me 5 years to write. And since then, I have figured out I can do it. And it's my profession now, and I do it rapidly, as you can probably guess.
Which book is your bestseller?
My first novel, Saving Grace, is nearly 2 million downloads now.
Wow.
Incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's tremendous. So what is the theme of Saving Grace? It sounds like it's got a wholesome theme in the idea of saving grace with religious connotation.
It does. It's about a modern woman who has kind of lost her way, and she's also lost her parents, and her mother was a very good influence on her. And so she's kind of let herself fall apart. And so in the midst of trying to find out who killed them, she also is trying to find her own saving grace and find her way back to the person that she wants to be again.
That's great.
That sounds great.
Now are your books, fiction books, are they centered around the same characters, or do you have how do you work that? How do you do that?
I give each of my protagonists 3 chances to be the star, and then I spin off a new one from her world of friends. So everybody knows everybody in these books, but not everybody gets to be the star all the time.
Well, that's good.
It's very creative,
good.
actually.
Do they know that? Do they know that they're going to get their shot at
Oh.
the big top one day?
There's a few of them I think would like to be the star all the time, and others that are a little more shy.
That's great. Well, Pamela, you tell us about, where did you grow up? Where are you from originally?
I grew up in Amarillo, Texas, and I
Up
have
in the Panhandle.
Yes, in the Panhandle, and it was a wonderful place to grow up. So I'm a Texas girl. Went to Texas A&M for undergrad and University of Texas for law school. But I've lived all over. I'm coming to you today from Wyoming, where we live half the year, and still maintain a home in Texas as well.
Where are you living in Wyoming now?
We have, I'm looking out the window, we have a cabin on the face of the Bighorn Mountains near Sheridan, Wyoming.
Wow.
That sounds beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
That's great.
We love it.
Okay, so what brought you in to see us initially back in 2008, Pamela? What was going on?
I felt so horrible. My period of feeling bad around my cycles had gotten longer and longer, and the symptoms around my female cycles had become rageful. I was telling my husband, you just need to check me into a hotel and leave me in a padded room for 2 weeks a month because nobody can seem to do anything with me, and I just felt terrible.
And so, how did you hear about had you seen some other physicians about what'd your OB-GYN say? What did your general doctor say when you went to visit with them?
Oh, my OB-GYN wanted to put me on birth control pills, even though my husband had had a vasectomy, and I told her that really wasn't necessary to put those things in me. And I gave it a brief try, and it made it worse. And then my PCP, my general practitioner, wanted to put me on antidepressants. And I said, oh, I'm not depressed. I'm very, very angry for 2 weeks a month. And I had migraines, so I was on a lot of migraine medicine, and I was putting on weight, and my energy was flagging. And just, I felt like if this is how the rest of my life is going to be, this is going to be a really, really long time to be stuck feeling this way.
And you were a young woman then. And nothing.
Yes.
You're still young now. You're 41 years old when you first came in, which looks mighty young to me. Right now, I guarantee you 51 looks mighty young to me. So anyway, enjoy your youth while you have it, please. So anyway, so you came in, and who did you see here? Which physician did you end up seeing? Dr. Sheridan?
The first one I saw was Dr. Sheridan, and he was wonderful. I think that the very first thing that made me realize I was in the right place is that he took his time and he listened. And he empathized, and he didn't promise a magic solution, but he said, we see people like you. We see people like you all the time, and I know we can help you. And I just was like this hope dangled in front of me that things could get better. And in fact, I had found you guys because my father and mother, my father's a physician. My father said, we've heard about this guy people go to when they have no other hope, when they can't find anybody else that can do anything for them. And that's how I heard about you.
Ah, very interesting. Okay, so you came and saw Dr. Sheridan, and of course at that time, you're having these problems surrounding your menstrual cycle. You're having 2 weeks out of the month, you were having severe problems. You were moody, you were angry, you were having migraine headaches. I don't know what your energy level was like. What was your energy like on a scale of 0 to 10? 10 brimming with energy, 0 no energy.
Oh, it was a 3, and
okay. No energy, difficulty with weight. You weren't thinking clearly or sharp as you had been mentally. Not sleeping well. Were you having joint and muscle aches and pains?
Yes, I was looking up fibromyalgia, trying to determine if that could be it at the time, although it wasn't what was driving me coming in. It was beginning to be something that I was thinking about, and I was tired all the time, and I just felt like I was a little old lady in a 41-year-old body that used to be athletic and, vibrant and healthy, and alive.
And at that point, how many books had you written?
0.
Shows you had written no books. You know who you remind me of is Stormy O'Mardian. You know who she is?
Oh, right.
No, tell me.
Stormy O'Mardian is the most popular Christian female writer in the world.
Ah.
And she was a guest of ours. And this was in 2000. She came in 2004. I never saw her until, I didn't see her until last year, 2017. She wanted to come and hand me a book. And I thought, well, they said there's a lady out in the reception area who wants to meet you. She comes in from Nashville, Tennessee. Okay, I'll go meet her. How are you doing? Nice looking gal. I said, nice to meet you. Stormy O'Mardian. It's sure nice to meet you. Tell me about yourself. What do you do? Well, I write books. Well, I'm going to give you this book I wrote. It's an autobiography, but I talk about you and on page 200 and something, and it's about how you changed my life. And I hadn't seen her, but she gave me credit is because my name's on the building, I guess. So anyway, I said, well, that's so nice. I read, and she had some nice comments to say how she got her life back and how to change her life. I said, well, you write books, and I'm thinking, sweet lady, she writes books. Some people just do that as a hobby, I'm sure. And so, how many books have you written? And she said, well, 32. I said, oh, that's really nice. And I'm thinking, okay. How many books have you sold? She said, over 32 million books. I said, over 32 million books? You got to be kidding me. Yeah, the bestseller was The Power of a Praying Wife. She sold 10 million copies.
I'll have to look that one up.
And so anyway, she happens to be a Christian author, and one of my pastor friends told me, I told him the story, and he goes, Stormy O'Mardian? You got to be kidding me, Hotze. She's the most popular female Christian writer in the world. I mean, in our church, they read these books, the women love them. It's crazy. I'm just telling you, she's amazing. I said, I didn't know about her. So, in her story was similar to yours. She was feeling like death warmed over. And before she had come to see us, I think she'd written 2 or 3 books. And I asked her, how are you going to, I asked her when she came in, we interviewed her, and I said, how did you think you would feel in 10 years if you hadn't come to see us? She said, I wouldn't be alive. I'd be dead. I was dying. I knew I was dying. And so anyway, we had this wonderful conversation. And so I asked her, I said, so tell me, when were you born? And she goes, 1942. I said, 1942? The woman looks, she looks maybe 55, 60, great looking 55 or 60-year-old woman. And she's 75 years old. And I'm going, wow. You've got to be kidding me. She knows. It just transformed my life. So that's why I asked you about Stormy O'Mardian, because you are an author. And I didn't mean to insert her story, but I thought it was interesting.
There are similarities for sure.
The similarities in her story, and how you hadn't written any books before you came in. And where do you think you would have been if you had not made, if we hadn't been able to help you to continue down the same path you were on? Where would you be now?
Well, I know I wouldn't have written any books. I have done a lot of things athletically since then that wouldn't have been able to do it all.
Well, let's ask. Okay, so we started you on, doctor started you on, Sheridan started you on some natural thyroid, got you on some progesterone, some cortisol, got you on a vitamin program and good healthy eating program. How long did it take you to feel any better?
I would say within a few weeks, I was completely sold that this was going to work. There was enough improvement within a few weeks. The weight was starting to fall off with,
healthy eating lifestyle, the yeast
healthy eating. Yeah, it was like a miracle. It was getting your hope back is priceless.
It really is. And so, how long did it feel till you felt like you got back? Running better, as good as you'd ever run before?
Within 2 months.
As you'd ever felt before.
I was training for a half Ironman, from couch to half Ironman. Within a month, I was up and training after I started. And within 2 months, I was full of energy and attacking, the whole process like like I'd never felt bad.
That's incredible.
Now, what is a half Ironman?
You swim 1.2 miles, you bicycle 56 miles, and then you
What?
run 13.1.
That's why they call it an Iron Man. Be made of iron.
I
to
didn't
do
Is
it.
know that.
that a half Ironman? That's ridiculous. Who would do that to themselves?
It's the
Oh, my
challenge.
goodness.
It's the challenge.
That's amazing that you did that.
It's the goal setting and achievement, and it appeals to a certain type A individual.
Well, congratulations on your success in that. Now, have you done any more half Ironman?
I've had done 2 more and did a handful of marathons and a few. They call them ultras, but it's anything over 26 miles. And since then, I started having things that hormones really couldn't fix when I would injure myself. So I decided it was time to find a less punishing
Right.
pastime. And so my husband and I hike a lot and camp, but we also now spend a lot of time trail riding with our horses as well. And I managed to injure myself with that too, but less injuries, but still very active.
Okay, so you did well, got up on the program, did the triathlon, started writing books and everything. But then I noticed about in 2012, you started to experience some problems again.
Yes, I did. I started having trouble again.
And tell us about that and what caused it, what you ended up having a hysterectomy, as a matter of fact, I believe.
I started having the same thing that had happened to my mom and her mom before them at about that age, just a lot of fairly rapidly growing fibroids in my uterus that started making life painful. And at the same time, I was having UTIs, urinary tract infections, just over and over and over and over. I was having urinary incontinence issues. And so whether or not they were all the same ball of wax or not, it started becoming a real problem.
Well, what often happened? How many children did you have, Pamela?
I had 2, and I guess they were just 2 very, very damaging children.
Well, they can be. And what happens as we mature, gravity begins to take its toll on all of us. That's just what happens. Yeah. And so, especially if you have some fibroids in the uterus, and the uterus begins to sag, let's say, and then that puts pressure on the bladder, and it doesn't drain the proper way it should. And the next thing you know, you need a bladder suspension. You end up needing a hysterectomy, which, as I mentioned to you earlier, it's just far and few between, slim and few, the number of women that have been in our practice. I could count them on one hand, and I have fingers left over. So it's surprising that the fibroids, had developed to cause you enough problem then, unfortunately, to have a hysterectomy. So tell us, after the hysterectomy, how did that go?
Well, it opened up a new world of problems because I reacted very poorly to the anesthesia. And they had a lot of trouble getting me to breathe afterwards, hours with, slapping me and have my husband in there and shaking me, and they couldn't take me off of breathing assistance. So when I woke up, I was extremely confused, and for the next literally 2 years had trouble with speech. And we called it speaking in tongues. I would start to say something and just gibberish would come out. I would forget my husband's name looking straight at him. And so for someone who'd done so much public speaking and who makes their living being able to put words together, having all this white space up here and not finding words was really, it was awful. And then in addition, there was also the fact that the OBGYN wanted me off all the progesterone after my hysterectomy. Luckily, I was seeing Amber with you guys by then, and Amber said, "Oh, no, you don't need to do that," because the predictable result was that it sent me, just boom, back where I was,
right.
As far as how I'd felt before. So it turned out to be.
So you did, for a period of time, stop the progesterone and felt worse, and then restarted it.
Man, I felt bad. I felt like I did before. I felt like I needed to be in a padded room or I was going to hurt somebody.
This is such an important point. After hysterectomy, now, did they remove your ovaries at that time?
Yes.
Okay.
And
after you've had a hysterectomy and your ovaries are removed, you're having surgical menopause. You're making no hormones. Now, the reason most individuals, women, end up having a hysterectomy is because they're having dysfunctional uterine bleeding, breakthrough bleeding, heavy bleeding, and maybe fibroids associated with that. That's why they end up having the hysterectomy. And usually, if they're in their mid to late 40s, the doctor's going to go ahead and take the ovaries out as well. And then you were having the problems to begin with because you had hormonal imbalance. Remember, if you're having problems like you were, Pamela, 2 weeks before your periods, and you were feeling angry and you had, low energy and difficulty with weight, you weren't thinking clearly, weren't sleeping well, and all these symptoms were occurring, it's hormonal. I mean, it's your hormones that are causing the problem because that happens cyclically, and it's associated with the period. That tells us that you were having low progesterone or a progesterone deficiency, an estrogen-dominant progesterone deficiency. So you took progesterone and it helped resolve problems, and then some problems crept up on you and that you described ended up going in and having a hysterectomy, and the doctor goes, you don't need progesterone anymore. Well, guess what? He just put you on some estrogen, probably Premarin or some maybe estradiol or something. Who knows what he ended up putting you on. And now you've got estrogen and you don't have any balance with the progesterone, and you're feeling just like you felt before when you had the progesterone deficiency, when you still had your uterus and had your ovaries. So you can't, ladies, you cannot, when you have a hysterectomy, just take, or go through the change of life, just take estrogen. You will gain weight. You will feel terrible. You won't think clearly. Your energy level will go down. You'll have mood swings. It'll be a terrible situation because you can't have your hormones without having balance. You can't take with it. If you just take one hormone, particularly estrogen hormone, without balancing it with progesterone, you're going to have problems. On the other hand, there may be, and there are women that we see that go through the change of life and really come in and they're not having any hot flashes. They're not having any night sweats. They feel pretty good. We put them on progesterone, and they may do well just on progesterone alone. It has a wonderful calming effect on the brain. Remember, the hormones affect the neurotransmitters, so they affect the way you think and the way you feel. Just like male hormone affects the neurotransmitters in men, it affects our attentiveness, assertiveness, our sense of well-being, our self-confidence, moods, goal orientation, decisiveness, directiveness, analytical ability. All those are brain functions. The hormones, the sex hormones, affect our brain function, the way we think and we feel. So here you had your hysterectomy. Your OB-GYN goes, you don't need progesterone anymore. And you said to yourself after a month or two, oh, yes, I do.
I called Amber.
Called up the Amber at the Hotze Health Wellness Center, and Amber prescribed for you progesterone. And how did you feel?
Yeah.
Better?
Oh, it was wonderful.
Huh?
Much better.
Yeah.
Much better. The rage went away, and I became more like I was before I had the hysterectomy, after you guys had balanced me in the first place.
Well, let's talk about what got you back on track mentally. It sounded like you would have described yourself as having mild dementia or early Alzheimer's.
It was, yes, I was terrified. And, after the OBGYN had said, oh, it goes away, it'll go away. And it just didn't go away. Ultimately, at some point in time, I started seeing Angelica instead of Amber,
right,
at the Hotze Health and Wellness Center.
She's one of our physician's assistants.
And Angelica said, I think that you have the MTHFR genetic mutation, and I think you're not methylating out toxins, and that this is classic. You have all this anesthesia that just stayed in your body, and unless you get rid of that, you're not getting rid of the things that are messing with your mind. Right. And so she did get me tested, and I did have it. But in the meantime, she said, go ahead and start treating yourself like you have it and start detoxing. And so I started taking active folate, the
methylated folate. Yeah.
Right. And I got a little infrared sauna at her suggestion and started sweating it out and taking a couple of other supplements that helped. And lo and behold, within a few months, I had my brain back. And that again was one of those just turning points where I'd been rebuffed by the conventional doctors that were telling me it will just get better with time, and no, you haven't had a stroke, and no, you don't have this, and no, you don't have that. But none of them came up with what the problem could be. And Angelica did, and it fixed it.
Well, kudos to Angelica Clark, who's one of our physicians here at the Hotze Health and Wellness Center. She's so very bright.
Yes.
And so I'm so glad that she was able to discover that you had that problem, was able to resolve it. That's very, very interesting.
With no drugs.
With
just...
no drugs. And look, listen, you're fortunate you didn't go see a psychiatrist or a doctor, a neurologist that specialized in Alzheimer's and all that, because they would have slapped you on a bunch of, Aricept and a bunch of other drugs that they give for Alzheimer's if they don't resolve the problem. And you would have been drugged up, and you'd be in a nursing home now, and rest to be history.
Scary.
I've seen that happen so often. So
Scary.
here's another example of a patient who was initially had health problems, came in, we got her up on a path of health and wellness. She was having all these problems with premenstrual symptom coming, and feeling rage for 2 weeks and low energy and overweight. She comes in 2008, gets her life back, does well, hadn't written any books, now has written 16 books. Subsequently, Pamela ends up having a hysterectomy in 2012 due to some fibroids and some dyspareunia, which is painful intercourse. And so the doctor said, well, we can do a hysterectomy. We'll get you fixed up. Takes out her uterus. Anesthesia causes her problems. She has residual problems from anesthesia for 2 years with some significant decline in her mental acuity and her mental sharpness. And I'm sure your husband was concerned about that. That had happened to my wife, and she couldn't remember my name, and she couldn't remember words. I'm sure he had to be thinking, my goodness, what's going to happen to my wife here in a year or two? Am I going to have to and I've seen this happen to women in this age group, in the 50s. I know of a fella, his wife was having some problems, took her in, and boy, they put her on all kinds of drugs. She was on antidepressants. She was having problems with memory. They put her on antidepressants and Alzheimer's drugs and everything, and she couldn't say a word, and ended up putting her in a nursing home, and then she ultimately died in her 50s. That's just ridiculous. So thank God when you began to have those problems after your hysterectomy, and your doctor said, just learn to live with them, honey, it's going to get better. Just the way it is. You're getting older. You know that, don't you? You got to learn to live with these things. If your doctor tells you that you just got to learn to live with it, you're getting older. Don't believe that for a second. Find yourself a new doctor, someone that can get you on a path of health and wellness naturally. And that's what Angelica Clark did here, who's one of our physician's assistants, as she helped you, Pamela. And that's a great story. What she had a problem with an enzyme called methyltripholate reductase, or methylene trifolate reductase, and it's an enzyme that converts folate to methylfolate, and it helps methylate various toxins so that your body can excrete them. You remember, you have to detoxify your toxins in your body have to be detoxified, and it's part of a methylated process that occurs. And she had a problem because her enzyme didn't work right that does the methylation. So the toxins she got into her system, her body couldn't detoxify itself. That's what was happening to Pamela. And by converting her over and getting her on some methylated folate, then she was able to do the detoxification, and she felt, and she got her mind back. And that had to be dramatic for your marriage.
Extremely. Part of the tox load was not just the memory problems, but it had flattened me out and also made me inattentive. Like I would cut people off in the middle of what they were saying. I wasn't listening. I was just, no ups, no downs. And so I was like a zombie, and a zombie without the ability to recall her husband's name. So I was a treat. But anyway, my husband's wonderful and patient, and he kept saying, we're going to figure this out. And sure enough, when Angelica had a couple of other pieces of information by then that hadn't been available right after the hysterectomy, some things became more apparent with time. And she said, "Oh, I have a very strong feeling what this is." And again, it's that feeling of you finally have hope again. And that lift in your spirits and how you get your whole life back just by getting that piece of you back that's missing. It was wonderful.
Now, so anyway, you've also had some problems here in the last year or two with some recurrent cystitis, bladder infections.
Yes.
Now, what has Angelica encouraged you to do there?
Well, the recurrent infections within my bladder, the urinary tract, had put me a few too many times on antibiotics.
Right.
I don't want that at all. And there were times where it was just had to be something that was done. And Angelica helped me find a way to address the UTIs naturally, which was by adding D-mannose into my regimen. And most of the time, that does the trick.
D-mannose is a natural sugar that is excreted in the urine, and it will blow up the Escherichia coli, which is the common bacteria that causes urinary tract infections. So that D-mannose we sell here at the Hotze Health and Wellness Center. So that's something I recommend. I would highly recommend if you're having a problem with recurrent urinary tract infections. That's the first step, that you can do something naturally.
She was also wonderful in that she finally gave me some different words and ideas about what might be happening. Instead of just, you have an infection, to the idea of this is an irritation, a cystitis. It doesn't even really necessarily need that antibiotic. It just needs help getting rid of that which irritates it. And it changed my mindset. It gave me other ways to go and look for additional ideas of things, ways to eat differently, ways to get supplements that didn't have things in them that would irritate me. So it really changed the game for me.
Well, this is a wonderful story and a wonderful journey on a health journey. So right now in your life, this is 10 years after you've come in and you've had some ups and downs. Tell me, where are you right now? What's your energy level on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being brimming with energy, 0, no energy?
I'm a good 7.5 or 8 right now. Okay. We've been playing with my hormones. I just finished doing hormone testing because of that, and so I'm going to leave room for improvement because Angelica's tweaking with me right now.
Have you done on obtaining a more ideal body weight?
Most of the time, pretty good. I had a kidney stone earlier this year that blocked off my kidney, and I spent some time in the hospital and stuff. So that was not a positive, laying around in a hospital bed and laying around with a ureter.
Did you end up passing it?
No, I didn't. They
happened?
Put a stent in. Yeah. I actually did have a bad infection then, and they were worried about sepsis. So I sat around with a stent in my ureter for a long time.
Wow.
6 weeks or so.
Oh, my
Wasn't
goodness.
But because of that, right now, I'm not exactly where I'd want to be, but I haven't had trouble maintaining where I want to be. I can get out and be active and do the things I want to do and wear the clothes that belong in my closet, and without having to go out and buy fat clothes. So for me, that's all a win.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Pamela, for joining us today and letting us just visit with you about your health journey. And I know you're still on it, and thank you for giving us a privilege here at the Hotze Health and Wellness Center to be part of that, to make recommendations to you. I always like to say, you're the health athlete, we're the health coaches, you're in the Health Olympics, and we want you to win a gold medal, but you're going to have to do the heavy lifting. We're going to make the recommendations, and so you've done well on following the recommendations, and you fought back and haven't given up, and you're doing well. So congratulations on doing a 180 and taking charge of your health.
Absolutely. And Pamela, if people are interested in finding out more about you and your books, where do they go?
They can go to my website, Pamela Fagan Hutchins, and the Fagan in that is Fagan, or they can look me up on Amazon.
Okay, perfect. And you know what? Pamela said it best earlier in the podcast. Hope is priceless. So if any of her story resonates with you, if you've been struggling with any of those symptoms, there is help, and you can get that help naturally. All you have to do is give us a call at 281-698-8698. That's 281-698-8698. It would be a privilege to serve you. Thank you for joining us here today at Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution.
Information provided on this radio program is neither intended nor implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice and is not intended to replace the services of a physician, nor does it constitute a doctor-patient relationship. You should not use information from this radio program to diagnose or treat a health problem or disease without consulting with a qualified healthcare provider. If you have or suspect you have an urgent medical problem, promptly contact a professional healthcare provider or call 911. Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution radio program advises you to always seek the advice of a physician or other qualified health provider prior to starting any new treatment or with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Any application of the recommendations from this radio program is at the listener's discretion.